Welcome to Lesson 5 in Unit 17, Structure, Function, and Survival. In this lesson, students use their own senses as well as readings and discussion to explore how structures of an organism work together. There are multiple ELA connections present throughout this lesson, which is approximately 4 days. In the engage portion of this lesson, students will revisit the original phenomenon of a news anchor reacting to a bug. You may want to replay the video from Lesson 1 and allow students time to reflect on what they think is happening to the news anchor and how his structures are able to help him react to the bug. Mention to students that by the end of this lesson, they will be able to write an argument to explain what is happening with this bug scare phenomenon. As a class, they will consider what a system is and how an organism's body is like a system. In the Explore portion of this lesson, students will engage their sense of smell to match up a pair of scent vials. There are 10 vials for this lesson, 2 of each scent. Put 1 vial of each scent somewhere around the room. Divide the class into 5 groups. Explain to students how to smell by wafting or holding the vial several inches in front of their face and waving the smell towards their nose. Tell them that this is a safer way to smell chemicals in a lab. After they each smell it, ask each group to find a vial that matches the smell in their vial. Guide a class inquiry about what students think was happening in their bodies to allow them to match the scents. Allow students to think, pair, share their ideas. Next, continue the discussion and ask students if any of the smells recalled a memory in their own life. Allow students to share examples such as the chocolate smell might remind them of a kitchen during cookie baking. Probe them further by asking how they think it is possible for a smell to make them remember something and consider what that must mean about the body parts that they were using to sense the smell. Some students may realize at this point that their brain and nose must work together in order for a smell to recall a familiar moment. Continuing on, give time for students to draw a model of what they think is happening when a person smells something on their smelling sense model sheet. Students may or may not know at this point that the brain has memories. Both the brain and the nose were working together as a system. Let students know that they can refine this model after the readings in the Explain. In the Explain portion of this lesson, a read aloud of DK Human Body from Lesson 3 will help students realize what structures are being used to sense the world around us. Remember that only specific sections from this book need to be read aloud for this part. Refer to the read aloud in the teacher pages for more details. After reading, allow students to refine their smelling sense model answers. Students should now be able to label the nose receptors, and brain. In the Elaborate portion of this lesson, students will revisit previous lesson topics on external and internal structures and build upon that knowledge with a read aloud about animal senses. Ask them to recall some examples of external and internal structures that help animals survive. They may respond with examples such as camouflaged fur, claws, beaks, bones, muscles, blood, and fat. Take any previously discussed examples at this point. Tell the students that all of the parts of the body of an animal work together to help that animal survive, both the internal and the external parts. Use the read aloud guide for the book provided, Amazing Animal Senses. If you have time, you could also revisit some of the pages of What Do You Do with a Tail Like This from Lesson 2 to give more examples of structures being used to perform specific functions for an animal. Next, students will view the following video phenomenon of a robin eating mealworms. Before viewing, tell students that they are going to use the robin as an example of a model argument written together as a class so that later in the evaluate they are prepared to write their own argument about the news anchor bug scare. Mention to the students that in order to survive, a robin needs to obtain food by catching prey like mealworms. In order for that to happen, the robin needs to find its prey, get close to its prey, catch it, and then eat it. After viewing, have students work in pairs to construct a claim to answer the question, How do the robin's internal and external structures work together to help the robin behave, survive, and grow? Circulate among the pairs and push them to support their claim with evidence and reasoning. Once students have a claim in mind that is supported with evidence and reasoning, let student pairs work together to capture their ideas on their Claim Evidence Reasoning CER template. Students may think of a variety of internal and external structures such as feathers, bones, eyes, beak, brain, muscles, or lungs. Students should give specific evidence why those two structures are used. For example, the robin's eyes are to help it locate the mealworms. Help students recall the evidence from the texts in this lesson. In the Evaluate portion of this lesson, students will construct their own similar claim evidence reasoning for the news anchor reacting to the bug, which, remember, that's the phenomenon addressed throughout this unit. Direct students to use the Robin class example they just completed as a guide. You may give students the blank template on student page 16. If they do not use the template, they could also add to the number of structures they mention to include the brain, eyes, muscles, and bones. There is an optional extension available in which you could have students create arguments for plants as systems of parts that work together, as they had previously done for animals. Students could use a rose plant as an example and describe the system parts of thorns, flowers, and roots. This is an excellent differentiation opportunity and a good time to touch upon the systems thinking model again for all learners. In this lesson, students use their own senses as well as readings and discussion to explore how structures of an organism work together. Students figured out that ultimately, it is the structure of an organism that supports its behavior, growth, survival, and reproduction. The many structures of an organism work together as a system to help the organism do the behaviors that allow for growth, survival, and reproduction. This lesson prepares students for a deeper dive into sight in the next lesson, as well as the next section, where they will compare different sense structures across animal type and create a model to describe how mealworms behave by sensing and responding to their environment.